So for this video, we're going to be doing something a little bit different, and I'm going to showcase a deck that I've been playing a lot in casual lately. Now, this deck in particular might be of interest to people because it is the deck I am using to grind the Centurion Title. If you're not familiar, Legends has a title that requires you to win 100 games with a mono neutral deck. That means a deck that contains only neutral cards, and if you win 100 games, you get a title called the Centurion. So, being mono-neutral, the deck is underpowered. Winning even some games can be a little bit stress-inducing or difficult, let alone 100 games. But I've been playing only in casual because I don't think it's near ladder worthy. But this deck has been actually doing really well for me in casual. In fact, as of recording this, I'm in the middle of a 7-0 run since going to this version, and I think that it has kind of a lot going for it. I think it's utilizing most of the better cards that you can throw into a neutral deck and at least playing up to the best synergies available. So we're going to kind of go through the list. I like to call this Dwemtotum. It is like half Dwemer, half Factotum. I think that the Factotum package is probably the strongest neutral cards period right now when you take them like as an entire package, as a core. So we include absolutely all of them. So as you're looking through the list, we have Assembled Sentry, Reflective Automaton, who does double duty for us, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Assembled Sanitizer, we have the Assembled Conduit, the Assembled Titan, and basically these are cards that as you play them, they get stronger as the game goes. This deck as a whole plays like a very, what I would call a defensive mid-range or a slow mid-range. It has the tools to get an early presence and snowball like a more traditional mid-range, but for the most part you almost play body control because a lot of your early game cards are just generally weaker than a traditional mid-range. You know, you don't have a Young Mammoth, for example. There's no Daggerfall Mages. You're not just jumping right out of the gate, often anyway, and taking control of field lane. So it plays a lot of defensive cards that help you fight for control of the board, and usually you'll lose a rune or two. But then because of the way this deck functions, specifically with the Factotums and then the Dwemer that I'll talk about in a minute, there's like this tipping point where you go from playing a bunch of stuff that is undervalued to playing a bunch of stuff that is overvalued, and you kind of swing the tide. So with the Factotums, a lot of times you're going to be picking the defensive options first. So while this, for example, the +2/+0 might be tempting, usually the lethal is better. Assembled Sentry, a lot of times guard is really beneficial because you need to just kind of stall until you get your snowball mechanics working and going. Same thing here. The +0/+0 and regenerate a lot of times ends up being better than the breakthrough, at least for the first trigger. Assembled Titan, usually my go-to, unless I'm the aggressor, is the +0/+2 and the gain 2 health, because again, you usually take a beating early and then you just find this like tipping point stabilization and then you go on the aggressive. Now, you can, with a really fast start, for example, with like a Steam Constructor Mechanical Ally into Dwarven Dynamo, be the aggressor. Those hands just happen less often, so taking this kind of defensive route with the Factotums is usually what you do. Now, for the Dwemer package, right? We don't run all of the Dwemer because some of them are just, quite frankly, bad, and I don't think that it's required to run them all. We run the ones that are either kind of good on their own or get a lot of benefit from Halls of the Dwemer. So right out of the gate, yes, we do run Halls of the Dwemer. We run 3 of them. This is one of those tipping point cards I was kind of talking about, where you play these understated Dwemer early, but once Halls of the Dwemer hits, suddenly they become overstated and very aggressive, and every time you play one, if your opponent can't deal with the Halls of the Dwemer, you've got some serious threats on the board. So that kind of plays into this like later game tipping point mid-range style I was talking about. So we do run Gearwork Spider. We run this because it has Prophecy, because it has Guard, so it's a nice speed bump. The summon effect is very good if you get 1 or 2 of these, and then you play again one of these specifically after a Halls of the Dwemer is out. This thing can flood the board with some really impressive threats. Also, Dwemer Reflective Automaton does double duty here. This does get the benefit from Halls of the Dwemer as well because it is all creature types, including Dwemer. We do run Spider Worker, not the best card, but it cycles itself. That's really the only reason that we run it. And a lot of times it's just a body that your opponent forgets about, and then if you leave it there, Halls of the Dwemer comes down. A lot of times this can get you a value trade to help kind of turn that tide. Steam Constructor is actually really good for us. It's essentially a 2-cost 3/3, as long as your hand isn't empty, because every card you're going to have is going to be neutral. We run a couple of other cards here I'll come back to. Dwarven Sphere. This is just one of the better Dwemer, period. 2/3 for 3 isn't great, but the Shackle is very, very useful at helping stall and or swing tempo in your favor. Mechanical Ally is again one of the better Dwemer. You get a 3/4's worth of stats and draw a card. It also gives you 2 bodies, which is even that much better when you do have Halls of the Dwemer. Yagrum, he's just great here. We got a lot of Dwemer that we want to draw from our discard pile. Getting +2/+2 is even better. Dwarven Dynamo is probably the best Dwemer in the deck. This is essentially a 4-cost 5/4 that also gives you reach and gives something guard. This card is kind of this is the card that if you do have a hot start, so as I was saying before, if you start with like Steam Constructor into Mechanical Ally into Dwarven Dynamo, you can have a really hot start and be the aggressor right out of the gate. It just doesn't happen often, but this is the one that kind of enables that. This one gives you a lot of flexibility. We run Sparking Spider just because of the Prophecy. The stats aren't great, but Guard is nice in a pinch to, again, kind of serve as a speed bump, and Prophecy is very, very helpful to us. And then the last Dwemer we run is one Dwarven Centurion because a 6/8 for 7 is actually not bad. The breakthrough is nice. By the time you're playing this, this is kind of serving as a finisher. The fact that it can potentially give you some Dwarven Spiders is just a bonus, but really this is just a big-bodied late-game finisher. So for the non-Dwemer, non-Factotum cards, we try to run things that either shore up our weaknesses, are just plain powerful cards, or that enable things that we wouldn't normally get in a neutral deck. So Mudcram Merchant, 1/3 for 1 isn't bad. This gives us access to cards that are not neutral, so this is kind of a win-win for us. We do also run Crushing Blow, a little bit of reach, a little bit of removal, again kind of just shoring up what we don't have in the rest of the list. Mundus Stone, I'll be honest, is kind of just here for memes. It's not particularly powerful, but it can save you in a pinch. I will say this about Mundus Stone in this deck. Just giving you the ability to, if you're trying to stall, right, you haven't drawn your Halls of the Dwemer, you haven't drawn that many Factotums, you're on your back foot, being able to play something like Gearwork Spider, and, you know, if it gives you 2 or 3 spiders, rolling ward on one or a couple of them is a big deal because they already have guard, so that can be really helpful with Mundus Stone. Similarly, getting ward on your Sparking Spiders, any of your Factotums, if you've already given them guard. Mundus Stone has the option to like really allow you to stall further, so while it's not great, in a deck like this you'll take every little bit that you can. We also run Wabbajack. Wabbajack does a couple of things in this deck. It can help deal with opposing pesky threats, because sometimes you just need to get rid of something in your way, and while the transformation isn't ideal, it's better than nothing. And again, we're mono neutral, so we're kind of handicapped in what our options are. But also, a lot of times, if we haven't drawn Halls of the Dwemer, but we have either played Spider Worker or Mechanical Ally to give ourselves a Spider Worker, Wabbajacking your own 0/1s or even your own Mudcrab merchants after you've already got the summon effect, is usually a bonus. Usually you end up with something better. It's hard to not find something better than an 0-1. Yeah, Wabbajack can be used on your own stuff, can be used on pesky threats, just kind of filling a void. The last card is Dark Harvester. This is strictly here for the power level of the prophecy. We're not a true control deck. We don't have the ways to run our opponents out of resources. We're not going to blow up the board with Dawn's Wraths or Ice Storms, but we do still need to survive until we can get our Halls of the Dwemer online, or we do need to survive until our Factotums are hitting a critical mass. Harvester just lets you do that. It also is great with Mundstone, again, if you can pop Ward or something. It can be a pretty back-breaking prophecy if your opponent gives it to you on the first rune. Even if you have to play it from hand, the 4 health is not inconsequential. It's not like we have a ton of ways to gain health. Mundstone helps in that capacity a little bit if you do roll Drain. Wabbajack or Mudcrab Merchant can potentially give you ways to do it, but otherwise you're relying a lot on guards and Assembled Titan. Harvester, again, just kind of helps shore up the inconsistencies of the deck. So this is what I've been playing. Like I said, I'm actually on quite a bit of a win streak in casual with it right now. Hopefully this will inspire you if you are looking to grind the Centurion title to kind of see what kind of decks work, or at least what are going to give you a better than normal chance to win with a neutral deck. So yeah, figured I would also record some games with it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into casual, play a couple of games, and kind of show how this deck performs and how you should play it. Hopefully I'll be able to showcase that tipping point I'm talking about, where you kind of play defensively and then swing once you get a little bit of a handle on things and you think you can win the race. So yeah, let's jump right into it. Alright, so here we go with our silly Dwemtotum deck, jumping into casual to try to steal some wins. We're playing against Telvanni for this game, and we are up against China. What a clever name. We're going to keep this because it's just 1s and 2-drops. This will help us start getting the Factotum synergy going. Merchant Mudcrab, obviously, very quality 1-drop. Oh, how interesting. I think Anasi is the play there. I think the ability to steal wards and drain and other silly stuff from your typical Telvanni fare is pretty important. Sadly, we cannot defend the Mudcrab. I mean, unless we go with this, then we're still 2 for 1ing him and giving him a rally. Kind of curious to see if this ends up being Telvanni mid-range or not.
Should have been more wood.
Suppose if we just be patient. Well, that doesn't make it seem like mid-range. Anasi has the potential to steal rally, working in our favor. We're going to go ahead and go with the lethal option over here anyway.
Should have been more wood.
Plays a schemer.
Let's go.
Not bad. Not bad at all. We cannot win the late game in this matchup, so we are just gonna sit around and push. We're gonna go ahead and go with the guard lethal combo here, just because I'd rather have them eat a 1-1 with this schemer than take out my lethal 1-2 here, or my 2-2.
Sothasill's people alive.
Well, that's not a good sign. If they're playing Galen this early, it's probably on a Necromancer.
Should have been more wood.
Alright.
Gotcha.
Feed and bleed.
Seems like a quality time for Anasi.
Anasi finds it useful to use her enemy's strength against them.
I mean, I have to assume he's going to have fire bolts or lightning bolts or whatever so that he can gale it into this, but we're going to make him use it, so it's better than nothing. That's not good to see, however. Oh, and or a bat. Or you can just bat and gain 1,000,000 health.
Repel the outlanders.
I'm wondering if that is what he shuffled in. Well, let's go ahead and start trying to push some damage. See if we can need an ice storm or something. The amulet might end up being problematic for us, being that we are neutral. We're not running vicious drag. Interesting, you hit me. Oh, because he's got the bat. Alright.
By the 8th, they will meet their
So his
mate.
rally triggers were landing on the bat. That is very fortuitous of my opponent. Move that over to get some damage on it. So we can daggerfall the next turn. Seems very good for him. I don't want to deal with his bat anymore, so we'll just, I guess, give him Red Brahmin, because why not? No way that could backfire on me. At least it didn't shackle and silence everything. I'm not sure which was worse, the bat or the Red Brahmin. Just kidding, it was still the bat. The health gain is kind of too much. That was a very good ice storm for our opponent. Not so good for us.
Or die. She'll take you. I slay the unworthy.
But the good news is, we have some decent plays here, actually. So, this can slow him down a tick. This isn't half bad either, because it does benefit from the hulls. It's just a question of, at that point, do I want to waste a crushing blow here? It sacrifices some reach, but it means that he cannot tome this and trade in, because this will essentially be a 5-3. I do think that is probably the way that we want to go. Because we're not going to win this race without being a little bit aggressive.
They've no move we can't anticipate.
Should have been more words.
Alright, so that's a quality wrath by my opponent that we have to hope we get the low roll this time. Alright, not bad. Let's go ahead and remove that as well. And if he has another ice storm, it's problematic for us, but not much we can do about it, right? It's not like we can play around it. We have to get bodies on the board and threaten lethal.
I'll scout ahead.
I'd be shocked if he doesn't have another ice storm, though. He's dug pretty deep into the deck. I mean, ice storm's bad for a couple of reasons. Not only does it give him health, but wipes the board.
So predictable.
Alright, gets the damage in, and then ice storms, right? Off the ring.
I will protect the hist.
Alright, well, comes down to random Wabbajack. And we push it through. So, a little bit wacky there, but games with Wabajack usually are. There's a victory though, so we're stealing them. Let's see if we can get another one. Alright, so here we go with game 2 on the old Dwemtotum. See if we can continue to steal some games. Looks like we're up against Professor Farnsworth. Good news, everyone. So we're going to keep the Mudcrab Merchant. It's just a great 1-drop. This is Prophecy, though, so I think we're going to throw it back. This is a 5-drop. Throw it back. Redraw as such. It's worth noting, this might be the only late game card that I'm happy seeing in my opening hand, because this lets me know if I speed bump long enough to get to this point, I can probably just like ride the back of the power of this thing to a victory. I just have to survive long enough. The biggest problem we're going to actually have is if this ends up being like Control Mage, for example. Oh, that's interesting. Let's quick take this. If it ends up being Control Mage, they're going to have a lot of ways to crush us in the late game.
A strong arm is what you need. Did I start something?
So we could have taken that just to continue our curve, but the reason we wanted to go with this is because it's just, quite frankly, a beat stick. Interesting he's choosing to go face.
Let's shed some light on the problem.
Is this like a mid-mage, I'm wondering?
Did I stutter or something?
We're gonna go ahead and take the lethal here. This will just eat a firebolt, but at least we make him use it.
I have
Do not test me!
The Dark
So now we
Brotherhood
can
is
go with
upon
our
us, and I shall cure it.
Black Dragon. They might just double trade in, but given that we're behind on board, that actually ends up being kind of a win for us. No, they're gonna probably shackle and push, so not looking like Control Mage.
Do not test me!
Stendar will protect me.
Oh, definitely not if they're playing this. I am thoroughly intrigued now. Well, we have to stall then, gang, so...
Talking Mudcrab Merchant! Read my lips! Mouthpaw!
Oh... Well... We do have these guys that can eventually get breakthrough with the right draw. I think we take this just because we don't want to play into it. Just legitimately, I think that's the play. We do want to guard that up, though, because we're trying to stall. Our opponent is currently the aggressor, and as such, we got to make some high-quality defensive plays. Now, if they have a javelin, we're kind of hosed. If they have a lightning bolt, they can trade this in and bolt. Potentially trade, value trade. This still swings, and we have to maybe deal with like a 1-drop or something. But just double trading in, huh?
Do not test me!
That dynamo did work for us. Alright, so since we are the ones dragging this game out at this point, we're going to go ahead and play the Titan. We're actually going to pick the health option as opposed to the damage option. And we're going to pick the health in both instances. Because while I think this is Control Mage, the fact that they were playing Vigilant of Stendar and the fact that they were punching me in the face, it makes me think that I was incorrect in my assessment. So we're going to go ahead and play the Halls here for a couple of reasons, but the big one is that it allows us to trade here. And now we can go ahead and turn it around and we can start to be the aggressor. I wouldn't be shocked if they have some sort of flicker effect for this, but...
to dust with you.
Ice Storm is a good defensive play there. But now... So basically, like, if you can stall, once you get to where like either this is online or you have this going, then you kind of become the aggressor, and this has been a bit of a perfect storm for us, just because we had them all. Now, basically what we're going to do now is say, I dare you to have another ice storm. Because if they don't, they probably just lose. They very well could, though.
I fly like the wind and the shadows protect me.
There it is.
Soldiers.
That is fair enough. Let's go ahead and see what this draws us. There's that breakthrough for our Unstoppable Rage play potentially later. Let's go ahead and give this guard, just because it also has lethal. And let's see if he has... Oh, interesting, right? Because if we played over here, then we're like walking into a Dawn's Wrath. I actually think that we just pass here. I want to play more and saturate my Magicka, but a third Ice Storm would be really problematic there. A Dawn's Wrath would have been pretty problematic. Wow. That Mundus Stone that we gave him is proving to be quite the Mundus Stone, huh? Well, we gotta get rid of the ward. Let's go ahead and do that on that side. Do this over here and give our dude some breakthrough. And the old +2/+0. He's done a great job of stalling, but we were the aggressor there, and 2 Ice Storms will in fact do that.
With you.
So, it has been written.
Yeah, I think we gotta get rid of that. Similarly, I don't think we can allow them to drain there. Alright. So depending on what happens over in that shadow lane, could be quite comical.
To death with you.
I have to assume we're going to eat a javelin here, but if we don't, we probably just win. But the javelin is really likely, because we have not yet seen one. Oh no! Oh no! Oh, the mud crab surprise! Oh, I'm sorry, man.
Please excuse Khajiit.
So, Dwemtotum! You know, fun. Steals victories. So, I really like playing this in casual. If you're trying to grind Centurion, I think this list is got enough to at least steal some wins. Hopefully this helps. As always, thanks for watching, and until next time, may you walk on warm sands.